Hello all. English poetry in 20th century. This is my today's topic. T.S. Eliot has followed entirely a different tradition from the romantic and Victorian tradition of poetry. Every age has certain ideas about poetry, especially regarding the essentially poetical subject, the poetical materials and poetical modes. These preconceptions about poetry during the 19th century were mainly those were established by great romantic poets Wordsworth and Byron, Shelley, and Keats. The sublime and the pathetic were the two chief nerves of all genuine poetry. Dryden and Pope, in their poetry, is conceived about composed their beats. Preoccupation with a dream world, as we find in Keats' La Belle Dame says Mercy, Tennyson's The Lady of Shalott, and Rossetti's The Blessed Damozel. It is a mixture of traditional and experimental poets. Thus, there was the great need for some great poets to make poetry adequate to modern life. So, 20th century poetry is a curious mixture of the traditional and the experimental, of the old and the new. It is complex and many sided. One of the leading characteristics of the poetry of the new era is abundance of its output. The modern poetry is a poetry of revolt against tradition. Once Royal Campbell describes modern poetry as an epidemic of intellectual and emotional diarrhea. A.C. Ward finds it eccentric, wayward, and commonplace. Modern poetry is marked with a spirit of revolt. The top root of the new poetry which sprang up from the after the First World War is the revolt against humanism and romanticism. The spirit of revolt is best seen in the poetry of T.S. Eliot and Auden. The heavy thud of bus traffic, the creaking of tram, the cars, the rattling noise of railway trains. The realist in theme has led the modern poet to discard the highly ornate and artificial poetic style of the Romantics. These are characterized by colloquial diction, speech, rhythm, and prosaic words. The poetry of W. S. Davis, Walter D. Larmier, Edmund Blunden is clearly marked with love of nature, but they are not spiritual like Wordsworth. But modern poets, though, are realistic in their approach towards life, paints its grim aspects, yet does not mean that they do not respond to the lure. It is influenced by the techniques of music, sculpture, paintings, and other fine arts. I. A. Richards called T.S. Eliot's poetry as the music of ideas, the new words, forms, and poetic techniques. Modern poetry is full of use of slang, colloquialism, common speech, bonds of meter, has been losing verse livery. The psych, the various schools of modern poetry. Emphasis has shifted from the externals to the renderings of the psyche. Thanks for watching.